to the Coroner's Report, Episode 5, Part 3, Darla, Harper, and Pam Page, when the cousins went missing. Before we begin, please remember this is a true crime podcast with adult themes. Please be aware when possible, the actual person's voice is in this podcast. However, several witnesses are deceased and some chose not to be recorded. Please remember to like and follow us on all social media platforms. All suspects or persons of interest mentioned are considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Pam just got back from a trip and was upset about something. I woke up Friday night pretty late in the night and noticed Pam wasn't in bed. I found her downstairs looking at photos and crying.
Was that the last time you saw her?
No, sir. I woke up the next morning. Pam was downstairs going through some clothes. She said she wasn't feeling well and asked me to open up the video rental store for her. I went to the store and opened it up, then I left because I needed a part for my truck. I went to several different part stores with no luck. Then my truck wouldn't start, so I called home hoping Pam would answer. But the phone just rang, so I called a taxi.
So what did you see when you got back to the house?
I didn't see anything. I didn't go back inside the house. I went to my garage and found the part I needed, then I hopped on my bike and pedaled back. I fixed my truck and then drove home. And that's when I found out she left, taking the dog and some clothes. I found the letter with her keys, the checkbook, and all her credit cards on the table.
Welcome back to the Coroner's Report. My name is Steve Nawojczyk, and I was the coroner for two of the largest counties in Arkansas, and I also served as the state crime lab director. These days, I'm retired and reviewing some of the most interesting cases of my career with my partner, Tracey Carrington. This week on Episode 5, Part 3 of the Coroner's Report, we are looking into the story of Darla Harper and Pam Page. They were two first cousins who went missing in two different states, 3 years apart. In our last episode, we told you about the strange disappearance of Darla, who vanished in the night, leaving her 2.5-year-old daughter locked away in her apartment. Darla has never been heard from again.
What we didn't tell you, and what no one in Arkansas really knew until Carl Beadle announced a lead in the paper in 1992, was that in 1989, 3 years after Darla went missing, and right about the time that her husband remarried, Darla's first cousin, Pam Page, had also disappeared.
It was 1992, and what investigator Beadle couldn't or wouldn't say to protect his case was that Pam Page had also gone missing in Peoria, Arizona, just outside of Phoenix. Pam was just 32 years old and the niece of Mel Nixon, who was Darla's mother. That Arizona case was about to make national news when the television show Unsolved Mysteries started investigating. Meet investigative journalist and producer Don Deveraux.
My name is Don Deveraux. I was an investigative journalist, a freelancer in Arizona, and did a lot of work with Unsolved Mysteries on NBC during the 1990s.
When you have questions, it's always best to go to the source. We found Don alive and well at 90, living in California with a story to tell about Pam Page.
It was officially a missing person case, but more likely a homicide.
Now remember, Pamela was Darla's first cousin. Darla's mother, Mel Nixon, thought right away that Pam's disappearance was a copycat to her daughter's disappearance. Could those crimes somehow be related? Investigators back in Arkansas agreed with Mel Nixon.
I kind of thought that, someone had followed the Harper case and had seen what the circumstances are and said, hey, maybe I can do the same thing.
The stories are eerily similar. Pam Frisby Page was born in and raised in Arkansas. She knew all about Darla's disappearance because her father was the older brother to Mel Nixon, who was Darla's mother. When Darla went missing, she was the talk of the family, and Mel was in frequent contact with her older brother. We asked Jimmie Rice about her sister, Pam Page.
She was our baby sister. There was 8 of us, and Pam was the youngest. Pam was easygoing. She loved to laugh, loved to have fun.
Pam loved her family.
She was real close to my mom, I guess because the baby always is. She never missed a birthday, sending cards, writing, calling. She called her just about every week.
Pam lived in Peoria, Arizona with her husband Rob and their 2 little dachshunds, Rerun and Killer. They were living the good life, and Don Deveraux, the reporter for Unsolved Mysteries, remembers digging into Rob's background.
He was an engineer at the nuclear power plant west of Phoenix at that time.
Bettina Page was Rob's younger sister, and she also remembers her smart older brother.
He was extremely intelligent. He was in the Navy. He was on a nuclear sub. When he got out of the Navy, he worked at Arizona Power and Light.
That's kind of how they met. Rob was on leave from the Navy and went back home to Arkansas to visit his sister Bettina, who had married into the Frisby family. Bettina was married to Pam's older brother, Willie.
So siblings in one family married siblings from another family.
That's right. Pam's brother, Willie, was married to Rob's sister, Bettina.
And that sounds like the old Who's on First joke.
Let me guess, Tracey. You've got a family tree sketched out on this one like you do on all of them.
Steve, I've got more than one.
Pam was my sister-in-law. She was my husband's youngest sister. And Pam and I were real good friends. My brother came home on leave, and Pam had recently broken up with her boyfriend from high school. My brother was hanging out with me and my husband. Pam always hung out with me and my husband. So they were just kind of thrown together while he was home. And I don't even think he was probably home maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks. And he proposed to her while he was home, and they got engaged. And then he went back to South Carolina, to Charleston, where he was stationed. And then they planned on him coming home sometime later on. Well, he was back home within a month, maybe a little bit longer, to get married.
Pam's mother was concerned early on. Pam's sister Jimmie remembers.
His sister was married to my brother. That's how Pam and Rob met. He was coming in from the Navy, and Bettina, my sister-in-law then, she said, Pam, would you go out with my brother because he don't know anybody? So Pam went out with him, and they were engaged within 2 weeks. My mom was totally against it because Pam was in college and still at home. Mom just thought that's too soon, but 6 weeks later, they were married.
It also sounds like Pam was a little concerned that she had made a mistake right after she married Rob. That's according to Rob's sister, Bettina.
I remember Pam telling me it was after the wedding, and then they got married at my mother and father-in-law's house, and then they drove to Conway to spend the night. She told me that Rob went somewhere to get something for them to eat, and she said she just sat on the bed and started crying and didn't know what she had done and that she didn't know Rob.
But they stuck it out for 10 years. Even with her concern, Pam's mother welcomed Rob into the family with open arms, and for many years their lives seemed almost perfect. Financially, the couple was doing really well.
While Pam grew up in a childhood full of love from her family that adored her, her husband Rob wasn't quite as fortunate, according to Rob's younger sister Bettina.
My dad was not a nice person, and my brother got the brunt of a lot of that. He was the oldest. Being the only boy, I think my dad expected a whole lot out of him. When my dad spoke, we jumped. You did not talk back or anything like that. My mother even said one time that she was afraid that one day we could be a family on TV where the son would take the life of the father. She was worried about that.
Rob's childhood was no fairy tale, and his marriage was full of ups and downs, too.
Pam had gained weight after the marriage, and that upset Rob. Several years before Pam went missing, Bettina, Rob's sister, visited with the family and was concerned.
Over the course of the few years that they'd been married, Pam had gained a considerable amount of weight. And Rob did not like her being heavy. We went up to visit them, and Pam looked great. She had lost so much weight, it was unbelievable. Pam and I were talking. We went to the grocery store, and I said, man, you just look great. And she almost started crying, and she said Rob told her he was not going to be married to somebody that was fat. And he put her on a diet, and he made her weigh every day. He found all the food she had hidden, everything. And he made sure that she lost all that weight. And she was really, really upset about it. So that's kind of the person that he was. But he said, I wasn't going to put up with me being married to somebody that looked the way that she did. And he said, I'm finally proud to be married to her. And he said, I'm proud to have her on my arm.
Do you really ever know what goes on inside a marriage unless you're in that particular marriage?
Not everyone thought the marriage was happy. Don Deveraux with Unsolved Mysteries discovered things weren't as they seemed.
Their marriage was, as I recall, in rather bad shape.
Rob's sister Bettina also remembered that last trip home to Arkansas.
When she came home that last time, she had gained so much weight, an unbelievable amount of weight. And we were all surprised she came home by herself.
Rob's sister, Bettina, remembered during that last trip home that Pam had talked about wanting to have a baby.
When she came home, she told me how bad she wanted to have a child, a baby. And Rob said he would not have the baby under any circumstances, that he would not bring a child into this world.
Sadly, a baby is never the cure to a bad marriage.
I know Pam, she was a real optimistic person and happy and go-lucky, and I'm sure that she wanted their marriage to be great and wonderful, wanted to have a baby, and that was not what Rob wanted. He was just under no circumstances, he did not want to have a baby.
To Pam's family, life was good for her and Rob out in Arizona. Rob was working as a supervisor at the power plant, and Pam stayed busy with her store.
She owned a DVD business. I think it's called Rewind or something, where she rented films. Very successful little business.
Ah, the days of the mom-and-pop video store.
I just remember the late fees and those rewind fees because they always caught me. The story goes something like this. Pam traveled back from Arkansas to Arizona only to leave a short time later with a mysterious friend named Sarah while leaving behind a note for her husband and taking her dog Rerun. She also took a couple of suitcases full of clothes, shoes, cosmetics, mementos, and $60,000 in cash. She left behind her husband, her credit cards, her car, her keys, her jewelry, and a successful video rental business in Glendale, and was never seen or heard from again.
The note she left behind, addressed to her husband, Rob, explained why she was leaving. But Rob just didn't seem to be very interested in finding his missing wife or his missing dog, which upset Butter a great deal.
Poor Butter, your long-suffering dog. But seriously, you would think if your wife went missing, you'd call her family, right?
Sure, but that's not what happened with Rob Page. When she was back in Arkansas visiting her family, Pam mentioned that her back and stomach had been hurting. When older sister Trina didn't hear from her baby sister Pam, she decided to call and check on her.
Trina, my oldest sister, was the one that talked to Rob first. She lives in Louisiana, and the time difference, it was a couple hours, and it was like 4 a.m. when she called, because she gets up real early. She said Rob was like he was expecting a call, and he just immediately read her the note. He had it right beside the bed, I guess. She said he just immediately read it, and that sent up a red flag to her. She said, I don't know why, but I started writing down. When I talked to him, I wrote everything down, and I've still got my notes in my big box. And then my sister Rena, she did the same thing.
Your wife is missing and a note is left behind. Don't you call someone? Don't you make a police report? Don't you do something?
I talked to my sisters first and then talked to Rob, and he told me he had tried to make a police report. He had the number and all that stuff. But then he turned around and he said when he was there that he kicked the desk because they wasn't going to do anything because she was, an adult.
So he tried to make a police report at least, right?
Not so fast. Nothing is as it appears in either of these cases. Rob Page waited 5 days to report his wife missing. He claimed he didn't notify anyone because he was too embarrassed thinking his wife had left him for a woman.
How do you go 5 days with a missing loved one and not call her family?
I don't know, but one by one, all of Pam's siblings called Rob and asked for him to read the letter to them.
The day that we found out that there was no police report, we had got him to fax us the note she supposedly left, and he wrote the police report number on the top. And I called the police department, and they said there was no such number and that he had never made a report. So that's when we knew that we needed to go immediate, not wait for him to, to say she might come back or whatever.
Pam's father asked to see the letter, and Rob sent him a copy. Pam's father did not like what he saw. He knew it wasn't Pam's signature. His story was not believable, and it just kept changing. Don Deveraux, the investigative reporter with Unsolved Mysteries, remembers.
And there were many indications along the way that he was playing games with the missing persons part.
Pam's sister Jimmie remembers when she got suspicious.
It was like an immediate suspicion because Pam would not have done that.
Jimmie wasn't the only family member that was suspicious. Rob's own sister Bettina was worried.
When my husband called me at work and told me that Pam was missing, the first thing I said was, I wonder what Rob did to her. My husband said, he said, what do you mean? I said, never mind. We'll just talk about it when I get home. And we didn't talk about it. But that's all I could think. I wonder what Rob had done to her. This is really hard for me to talk about. I really believed with all my heart that Rob had done something to her.
They sure were. The typed letter ended with a simple signature, Pam. 3 little letters. The family quickly compared the signature to her known signature. Remember, Pam never missed a holiday greeting and always sent a card. The family knew when they saw the signature that Pam did not sign that letter, and that's what concerned the detectives. This was just all totally out of character for Pam. The family jumped into action and headed across the country to Arizona. They were immediately suspicious.
The first call I made, I would never have believed that something like that had happened. We trusted Rob. Pam trusted Rob. But we just couldn't believe that that would happen. You just don't want to believe it.
No one wants to believe someone they love could be a cold-blooded killer. Both sides of the family jumped into action and started making their way from Arkansas to Arizona.
Well, that's a long, boring car ride.
Oh, man, can you imagine being stuck in a car all the way across Texas, which takes about 3 days?
Yeah, and you feel like you're standing still. Meanwhile, you're panicked, worried about your family member that's out there missing. And Rob's family was concerned too. Both of his sisters, they flew out to Arizona and arrived there before Pam's family got there.
I decided that I wanted to fly out to see Rob, and my sister decided she was going to go. I'll never forget when we got into the airport at Phoenix, and my sister and I were coming down an escalator, and I was at the front, and my brother was waiting at the bottom. I'll never forget, we locked eyes, and I don't know, it was just like there was just this horrible feeling that just went all over me. And when I locked eyes with Rob, it just sent chills all through me. The way that his eyes just looked, they just looked like pure evil.
And that's coming from their own sister, not Pam's sister, Rob's sister.
So the sisters arrived and they stayed with their brother Rob at the house, the last place Pam was known to have been. And that's when they started noticing things that were not as they should be.
Rob had to go down to the store, and Patty Sue and I started looking through everything. There were things left there at that house that if Pam had left, she would have taken with her. They didn't have any children, but they had nieces and nephews galore. And my mother-in-law had made a big album for Pam. I don't know if you remember, back in the 80s, there were these big albums people would make, and you could buy them, and they had quilted covers on them, and they were decorated real pretty. And she had every picture that she'd ever received from any of us of her nieces and nephews. And they meant everything to Pam. That was still in her hope chest that she had gotten on her 16th birthday. She would have taken that with her. There were just so many things there that she would have taken. And my sister and I just started getting more and more creeped out the more that we found. I was nervous sleeping there that night.
Oh, that letter. Oh, man, it raised way more questions than answers.
Dear Rob, I was going to write this, but every time my hands started shaking. You may already have figured out what is happening. Sarah said I shouldn't write you a letter, but you deserve an explanation.
The family had a lot of questions. The biggest one? Jimmie wanted to know who the hell was Sarah, and why didn't anybody know who she was?
The police checked it out. They went through every Sarah that was on their list of customers, because that's supposedly what Rob said she met her was at the shop that she came in regular. Well, every Sarah they talked to didn't even really know Pam. None of them. And, they checked it all out, and nobody that knew Pam had ever heard her mention Sarah. We had never heard of that before, ever.
Even Rob's own sister didn't buy the Sarah story.
Rob told all of them that she had met a woman from the store and that, he made up this story. I think her name was supposed to be Sarah, and I know it was a made-up story.
According to Rob Page, Pam kept a very tight circle of people around her.
Pam worked all the time. She didn't have many friends. She never had more than one friend at a time. It was always one friend. It was always singular.
By the time you read this, I will be a long way from here. Right now, I'm not even sure where we're going to go. I'm not coming back either. I have thought this thing out and have been planning this for several months.
If I was planning to make my getaway, I damn sure would know where the hell I was going.
I thought I would go back home, but it just isn't right. I know this now since my trip. I'm leaving because I'm not happy, and I know you aren't either. I thought living back home would make me happy. It won't. I know this now.
Yet, by all accounts, during her visit back to Arkansas, Pam was happy and talking about the future. Pam told her sister about her future with her husband. They were going to buy a new house, and they were going to open a second video rental store. That didn't sound like somebody who was just going to run off.
This doesn't sound like a woman who was going to flee. And why flee? If the marriage was okay but ending, just move out. Why cut all ties and disappear?
None of this made any sense to anyone.
I guess I really don't know what will make me happy, but I have to find it. I do know that we're not happy together, and we haven't been in so long. I really can't remember anymore. You have changed so much over the years, and each year we just keep getting farther apart. We don't love each other, and I'm not sure if we ever really did. I'm not sure what real love is, but it has to be better than this. We're only existing together, and it's making me crazy. I really care about you, but I have to start doing something for me. I'm tired of trying to please everyone in this world except myself. I'm tired of being nice to you, the girls, the members, my family, your family, and everyone else, and getting nothing in return. The only one who can find happiness for me is myself.
What a Dear John letter.
Yeah, if only it were true.
The only real friend I feel like I have is Sarah. She understands my feelings and has really helped me to face the realities of life. She's done what I am doing. Sarah and I are both looking for the same thing, happiness. She hasn't found it here, and neither have I. I'm not sure where we're going yet, but I guess it really doesn't make much difference. Sarah and I have gotten really close to each other over the months, and I don't think I could do this without her being there.
Best friend or lover or both, no one had ever heard Pam mention anyone named Sarah, except Rob. Don Deveraux remembers Rob's story.
And he made claims that she'd run off with a lesbian girlfriend, which was pretty unlikely.
Rob didn't go into a whole lot of details about Pam's new friend.
Sarah left her husband in California and moved to Arizona. Pam had been spending the night with Sarah. There's not really any recent photos of Pam because she hated having her photo taken.
I'm taking Rerun with me. He always did love me the best. Killer was always your favorite, and I know he would miss you if I took him also. I know they will miss each other. Be good to Killer, because I'm really gonna miss him a lot.
Poor dog. You have to wonder what happened to her dog. That really bothered her sister Jimmie.
Her dog was probably one of the first things that clicked in my mind. When we were up at that cabin, Pam had talked about her dogs were getting old. She had 2 dachshunds, Killer and Rerun. And she said she couldn't separate them, and she didn't know what she would ever do if something happened to one of them. She didn't know how they would survive. She loved those dogs. Well, that was the one thing when he said she took one of the dogs and left. She wouldn't have done that. She would never have separated her dogs. That was the one thing that got me that first day.
I'm leaving this way because I don't think I could tell you these things face to face. I know you thought we were going to get a divorce. I just don't think I could go through with all that. It would drive me insane to play 20 questions with everyone, and everyone would be trying to put us back together when we both know it wasn't meant to be.
To me, this section of the letter, it just rings untrue. Pam's in Arkansas a week before, gushing about Rob and their future.
The whole damn thing just reads untrue. It sounds like Rob decided that there wasn't going to be a future for Pam.
So instead of a divorce and moving on to a new place, she runs because she doesn't want to answer questions? I don't know about you, but I don't ever hound my divorced friends about why their marriage tanked.
Me and Butter are still pissed over the dog.
Me too. Rob's sister Bettina remembered Rob talking about filing for divorce when she flew down after Pam went missing.
He told all of us that he and Pam were supposed to meet with the divorce attorney the Saturday that she got back.
So instead of seeing the divorce attorney, that Saturday he might have been burying a body.
Just wait till you hear about his alibi, Steve.
I'm taking the Horde. A second store was never meant to be. I'm leaving you enough money in the accounts to keep you in the green. I'm going to take the car, but only to meet Sarah. I will leave the keys behind the driver's seat, and it will be at one of the Winchell's donut shops in town. I just don't want you to try and find me. Please don't try. I'll just leave. I'll leave the other keys, the checkbook, and my credit cards on the table with this letter.
By the way, the car was a snazzy and 1981 yellow Corvette.
I'd be taking that Corvette.
2 single women in a Corvette might draw attention.
And that's why I'd be taking the Corvette.
You always have to have the last word. This is the one time when I beat you to it.
You know, there's always a little truth in a lie.
Ouch.
It kind of makes me wonder if Pam ever saw this letter, let alone wrote it.
The last part of that letter was the most telling, and it made no sense.
I have always thought you were going out on me, even though I don't know when you would have had time to. If you are, I guess I don't really blame you. But I'm glad I never found out. I don't know exactly what I would have done. If you never have, I'm sorry I mistrusted you. I never went out on you. I always hoped that someday things would change with us. I know now that isn't possible. I'm sure there must be someone out there who is right for me and you, because we sure aren't right for each other.
So she thought he was cheating, but never knew if he was cheating.
Yeah, but then she's sorry for even thinking such a thought? Listen, I'm a woman. If I think you're cheating, me and my posse will know her name and her middle name and what her favorite perfume is within an hour.
I have no doubt.
Rob's sister Bettina remembered their mother's reaction when she saw the letter.
Now, my mother couldn't wait to get that letter, and when she got it, I went up to her apartment, and when she showed it to me, she was just, I could see it in her face. She just knew that Rob had written it and signed it.
Investigative journalist Don Deveraux dug deep into finding Sarah.
I even advertised. There was a lesbian publication in the Phoenix area. I went and talked to them, and they ran a personal ad in a few issues of that magazine that went out to lesbians in the region, because Rob claimed she ran off with a lesbian. And so I was soliciting information from the lesbian community of any woman who might have known anything about Pam. And I got no responses at all. I don't think she was a lesbian at all. I think Rob was making noise about that.
No leads went anywhere on what happened to Pam and Rerun. Rob Page was really quiet about what happened.
She came back from her trip to Arkansas pretty upset about something, but she wouldn't tell me what was wrong.
During the investigation, Pam's sister Jimmie discovered that the week Pam was in Arkansas, Rob was on his boat with a lady friend.
He was definitely cheating when she was visiting the last trip home. But before that, I have no idea. She never mentioned him going out with anybody or even suspecting that he did.
Rob seemed unfazed at the police looking at him as a suspect.
I realize I'm a suspect in her disappearance, but I didn't kill her. I even hired a private investigator hoping to track her down.
It's just so unnerving that both Pam and Darla just poof disappeared.
In 1986, when Darla disappeared, Rob knew it. So Rob knew, and Pam had talked to him about it. He knew.
Both families were affected by the disappearance of those first cousins, and the disappearances were eerily similar.
The last time Pam was seen alive by anyone other than Rob was at 8:30 on Friday night, July 21st, 1989, after the video store closed. She was walking to her car with her assistant manager. The assistant manager reported she and Pam were talking about the second store Pam was planning on opening. Pam seemed cheerful all week, and Rob even stopped by the store, and they were affectionate toward each other.
I woke up last Friday night, June 21st. I noticed Pam wasn't in bed, so I went downstairs and found her on the couch looking through some family photos and crying. She said her back was hurting and she was going to go sleep on the couch.
It simply made no sense. No one that Pam knew, not her friends or employees, ever heard Pam talk about her friend Sarah or thought her marriage was in trouble.
Robert Page's story started to wobble.
Changing stories always makes the coroner suspicious.
Kinda think you have every right to be suspicious on this one, Steve. 3 weeks after Pam Page went missing, the crime lab in Arizona confirmed that the signature on the goodbye letter did not match Pam's known signature.
And that's when Robert Page's story dramatically changed.
Robert Page now told the police he found the letter on the family computer days before and confronted his wife when she came back from Arkansas.
When she came back from Arkansas, I found a letter in our home computer where she was talking about leaving me. I printed it out and handed it to her.
Pam's family also doubted that there was even $60,000 in a safe because the couple wasn't known to be thrifty. Pam's family never gave up hope they would find her. They traveled back and forth from Arkansas to Arizona many, many times over the course of all these years. They never stopped looking.
Rob wouldn't even talk to Pam's family.
We never went back in the house. Actually, I only talked to Rob just a couple of times on that first day and second day. And after that, we didn't talk to him anymore after we saw the police. No, he wouldn't talk to us anymore. We did ask him for Pam's pictures and stuff like that when we told him we were coming out there, and he set it outside in a garbage bag.
There were rumors that Rob had a girlfriend.
And her name was Kayleen, and I can't remember her last name right this minute, but I've got it. But she was his secretary, and she's the one that went out on the boat with him during the week Pam was in Arkansas.
The family even pulled in psychic Carol Pate, the same psychic Darla Harper's mother used in Arkansas.
You know, I saw a psychic. What she told me, it made sense. She said he planned this. He had it in his mind to do it. But that day was not the day he had it planned. I mean, that just happened. It was like I don't know, maybe an argument or something, and that it happened that day. But she said it really was not planned for that day.
Don Deveraux also put credence into what the psychic had to say.
Without even coming to Arizona, she described a bedroom scene in the second floor of their house where she felt Rob had killed his wife that matched pretty closely what the bedroom looked like. She described the body being put into the trunk of a silver car. She described a route that the body was then driven that matched the route that fit very exactly the description of things from Rob's house to the friend's house in West Phoenix, where I suspect she was buried.
Rob's sister Bettina was also impressed by the psychic.
And nobody had been out to visit Pam and Rob except my husband and I. When Patty Sue and I got there and Rob dropped us off, and of course we started, looking through the house, we went upstairs and Pam and Rob had bought a brand new, that ugly black lacquer furniture. We didn't know what kind of furniture they had in their bedroom. Carol Pate said something about that bedroom, the black bed or something, and that there was a watch crystal underneath the bed, and I think that she thought that she got smothered and that it almost didn't happen.
A newspaper reporter took a route through town that started at Pam's house and ended on a street named Coolidge. And it just so happened that Rob's best friend from his Navy days lived nearby.
Oh, the house was not on Coolidge, but it was a block away from Coolidge at a friend's house. One of the names that the psychic remembered was with the name Coolidge. Coolidge runs along the back side of the house that the friend lived in. The house lived on the next street south of Coolidge.
That old Navy friend was named Gary, and he was away on a week-long vacation with his soon-to-be wife.
He had a male friend with whom he did military service in the Navy, whom he still remained a close friend to, who owned a home in the West Phoenix area somewhere. And that friend was away the week that Pam disappeared. The friend was away on a camping vacation, I think in Colorado or someplace. And there was some indication that Rob used that friend's backyard, which was in the process of being reorganized with piles of dirt and all kinds of stuff, as a spot to bury Pam's body. There was a shed parked on top of where I suspect the body was buried, a tool shed, and that it had appeared later and deliberately, I think, put over the spot. When the Peoria cops came to look at it, and they didn't move the storage shed. They tried to sort of look around it, without even doing any digging. I'm not sure even a cadaver dog would have been very successful.
The friend's wife added more to the story.
She described them having come back after the camping trip. The tool shed that I described, it had been placed on the location where I suspect she might have been buried. There was a large amount of dirt just outside the window of a back bedroom in that house. A large amount of dirt, and all indications were in their absence that dirt had been partially removed and then put back again. And there was, in weeks thereafter, a very strong odor of something dead emanating from the ground around that pile of dirt. And Rob excused it as maybe a squirrel or a rabbit or something had gotten killed and buried there. I suspect it was Pam being smelled around that pile of dirt for a while.
Don Deveraux still believes that there were several things mentioned that seemed to fit the psychic's vision.
That's all well and good, but law enforcement folks never seem impressed by psychics. If they worked, every law enforcement organization across the country would hire a psychic to be part of the force. Other than the family, no one wants these cases solved more than the police, and they are willing to do whatever it takes.
But to get a search warrant or to make an arrest, you have to have more evidence than just what a psychic has to say. There was so much to make you suspicious about this case, but so little hard evidence.
Like a quickie divorce, it sure didn't take old Robert long to file. Robert had filed for divorce on August 9th, 3 weeks after Pam went missing. Notice was given in the newspapers and the divorce was granted on November 24th. Pam's sister Jimmie remembers.
He divorced her fairly soon after, so he got the house, the cars, and she had a Corvette and he had a truck.
Pam's family continued to travel several times a year back and forth between Arkansas and Arizona, asking questions, interviewing people, and putting up flyers. The family believed that as they put the flyers up, someone was taking them down, and they point their fingers at Rob. During one of their trips back to Arizona, Jimmie learned something about her baby sister's disappearance.
We would go door to door and talk to people, give them posters and ask them if anybody had said anything. What happened was the fellow that owned the bookstore saw Rob and a woman with a child pull in and dump a whole bunch of bags into their trash dumpster. He knew Rob because of the shop, but they had all had an agreement that none of them would ever bring their home stuff and put it in the dumpster. So that's why he noticed it. And then he went and looked and realized it was women's clothes and stuff like that. But he didn't put it together until later when he was getting ready to leave. His father or somebody was dying in Florida, and he left for that. And then when he came back, the people around the shops told him about Pam. He told me that he saw Rob do this. So, we took it to the police, but by then it was, months down. I mean, there wasn't any hope of finding what was in that dumpster, but at least he knew, he could tell them what it was.
Well, it's not like he's going to confess. But the police followed up every lead, and of course, all leads pointed back to one person, and that was Rob Page.
Police searched my home, my truck, my boat, and the video store looking for possible leads. I was even called to police headquarters where officers told me they had found Pam's body. I denied killing her and demanded to see the body. They refused to produce it. I even had an investigator tell me that they knew I had killed Pam in self-defense. They finally admitted they hadn't found a body.
Rob didn't even seem to care that his wife and his little dog were gone. He didn't seem to even think twice about it. We asked Pam's sister Jimmie if Rob was haunted by this.
I think he put it out of his mind, and I think he pretended that nothing ever happened. I mean, every aspect of her was gone out of that house within just a little while.
Don Deveraux also picked up on Rob's disinterest in the case.
No, just denial of anything. He wasn't even that concerned that she was gone.
One article in the paper in 1990, and then just nothing. Years went by, and Pam never contacted the family, nor did Darla. 2 missing women just vanished.
I bet he didn't want any part of that TV show.
Yeah, Rob Page chose not to participate in the episode.
Arizona police didn't think that Pam walked away any more than I thought Darla walked away in Arkansas. Pam's sister Jimmie knew her sister wasn't coming home.
Her dog was probably one of the first things that clicked in my mind. When we were up at that cabin, Pam had talked about her dogs were getting old. She had 2 dachshunds, Killer and Rerun. And she said she couldn't separate them, and she didn't know what she would ever do if something happened to one of them. She didn't know how they would survive. She loved those dogs. Well, that was the one thing when he said she took one of the dogs and left. She wouldn't have done that. She would never have separated her dogs. That was the one thing that got me that first day.
After Pam disappeared and the divorce was final, Rob declared bankruptcy on the video store. Investigators reportedly discovered that Rob had made plans to sell the yellow Corvette just prior to Pam's disappearance. No one knows if Pam knew he was planning to sell her car.
Peoria, Arizona detective said the ground-penetrating radar was used in 1995 in an unsuccessful body search. Arizona police ended up digging up the backyard where the couple once lived. Rob still lived there, and they found nothing.
That sounds a little familiar.
I thought there were no coincidences in life, Steve.
There are no coincidences. There are no coincidences. Something always predicates the actions. You know, when I did training for cops, coincidences were something that police and good investigators never consider as just an accidental happenstance. Something made those things similar, and that's the job of a cop. A good investigator will figure those out. Yep, no such thing as a co-inky-dink in the investigative business.
Funny how time just keeps rolling along.
Faster and faster.
This concludes Episode 5, Part 3 of The Coroner's Report, Darla Harper and Pam Page, When the Cousins Went Missing. Stick around, there's a whole lot more to this story. If you like our content, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have questions, please reach out to us on our website at coronersreport.net or on any social media platform at The Coroner's Report. Special thanks to investigators Vince Mayer and Carol Kimble, and former investigative journalist for Unsolved Mysteries Don Deveraux, and family members Jimmie Frisby Rice and Bettina Page Frisby for their insight and their memories. Thanks also to Heather Graupman at Lostnfound blog and Lostnfound podcast. And thank you to voice actors Alan Prather and Savvy Valentine. Copyright 2024, Aussie Grove Media Group, LLC.